I'm not sure what the reason is, why things like this aren't made here in the US, and how come we had to go all the way to Scotland to find this amazing piece of equipment. One of the biggest things that we fight when we're building fence is really terrible ground. With pieces of equipment like this, even really rocky ground or really cobbly ground like what we have here is super easy to deal with. And I'm going to show you at first how we would use this piece of equipment to build a chain link fence without actually drilling a hole, but yet leaving us a nice hole that's perfectly round and to exactly the right depth. So the base unit for this piece of equipment is a Hinwa, and that's made in North Italy. And it actually has a Kubota engine. Not surprising, because Hinwa actually makes the track loader bases for Kubota themselves. And typically what these are outfitted with are like track dumpers and stuff. Bryce has secured these, make this entire piece of equipment here, and then add a remote to it for us so that we can have even more versatility. This is something that not a lot of people have seen. Have you ever seen somebody pound a hole? That's what we're gonna do. As mentioned, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna use this, and this is what they call a bomb. And this is a 10-inch bomb, so we can basically knock or drive a 10-inch hole in the ground right here. Now, if you look around, what you see on the top of the ground is exactly what's under the ground. You can see what we're dealing with in the ground. So this is very, very difficult ground. Once you start digging a hole and the rock comes out on the flighting, it just makes that hole bigger and bigger. It's really easy to get them super wide, but really difficult to get them super deep. We'll show you how a bomb can help in an application like this. Conveniently enough, we do have 180 degrees of slew as well, so we can easily position on either side of the machine or drive on the back. Now we have a mast leg right down here that we're able to stabilize ourselves a little bit with. And conveniently right here we have a bubble, a bullseye bubble, that kind of gives us an idea whether or not our mast is perfectly up and down, which right now we can see that we're perfectly straight, which means we should have a hole that, as long as this is plumb or parallel with this, we should have a nice straight hole. One of the things a lot of people that are pounding posts do is they'll constantly look up and look down. The reason they're looking up is because they don't want to run their weight into the top of the bump stop there. But one of the things I've noticed is that if we only raise this telemast to right here, then we know that we're never going to top out. The other thing you'll notice is that this has an auto telemast, meaning that if I want to get full height, I don't have to actually raise the top half of the mast, that it actually goes up all the way every time. And that's a really cool feature because it cuts down on friction and allows us to hit harder, which is how we're able to use all that force to get that post or the bomb driven into the ground, even in very rough conditions. It's all about minimizing friction on the way down so we get all the force we can. And with this telemast, that's one of the ways we can do that. That's how come we're able to use this 400 kilogram weight, which is about 880 pounds, where some machines would take a lot bigger weight to be able to do the same amount of work. The nice thing is we have two speeds. So we've got slow speed and then we've got fast speed. I don't know what fast is, but I'm gonna guess about 7 miles an hour. It's kind of like tracking an excavator. Not gonna be super fast, but fast enough to get you across the job site. Should we dig a hole with an auger and show that in comparison? Proof's in the pudding, right? So in an effort to be fair, what we're gonna use is we're gonna use a 9-inch rock auger. Now this is called a rock auger because it's got these special teeth down here at the bottom. There's a lot of different types of augers, and I think a lot of people are probably not really familiar about what the different types are for, different flights, different heads. So if you'd like a little bit more information about that, drop a comment down below and tell us to do an auger video, and we'll tell you about some of the different types of augers we use and when and why we use them. However, this one's a rock auger, has these teeth. We're gonna give it the best chance. It's not really made for this type of rock with dirt, but the reason I chose it is because it has these wider flights so that hopefully rocks will come up out of the hole if it doesn't counter rocks. This is hopefully going to give us the most fair comparison to pounding this hole, and we're going to see what we can do here. So let's see what happens, what it takes us to get this hole in the ground. Oh yeah, there we go. Oh yes, there goes all the stuff. This hole actually turned out better than I thought it would. We're about 34 inches. And on this one, if I take a shovel, hopefully I can fit it in there and clean this out. Just that little bit of powder stuff on top fell in. Oh yeah. This is where adding a little bit of water to your hole really helps if you've got dirt. If it's all rock, it doesn't. I'd have been better off never putting a shovel in this one. Yeah, right about 34 inches. Now the big difference here is that I don't have this big old conical or this great big blown out hole here at the top. Had I never put a shovel in this, if I would have just wet the top of the ground so it all stick together, then I wouldn't have had it slough in, I wouldn't have had to do anything. There would have been no dirt to pull out. So that would be my recommendation, is to try and keep the top wet in a dry condition like this. But we're able to get a 34-inch deep hole here, pounding it. And now if we're in a lawn or somewhere where we're trying to keep the area clean, we don't have a bunch of dirt to dispose of. Like I said, if I'd add water, I wouldn't even have that dirt. We'd have just kept everything nice and there wouldn't have had any dirt slough into the hole to clean out. So, but you know our rule, if it's loose, it comes out. I will add one more thing, and that is if we would have used a double flighted auger, which would have had flights about in between each one of these, this hole would have been a lot worse. That double flighted auger would have made it harder for the rocks to come to the surface and made a bigger mess. And if we'd used a larger auger with double flights, it would have been even worse. So the larger the hole gets, the more propensity it has to blow the hole out. Especially if we start hitting rocks right there and we start sliding all over the place and we have to try and get it back on. It just becomes very, very large, very fast. This worked about as ideally as we could possibly make it work in this particular ground. What I'd like to do next with the Bryce machine is show you how we can drive some wood posts with it. So we're gonna drive a 12-foot tall wood post. We'll drive a 4x4 wood post. We'll drive some pipe with it. So let's go show you how all that works. So the first thing we've got to do to get ready to drive this big post is, because we know we've got a bunch of rock down below, we're gonna go ahead and save a step and we'll rock spike a hole. Much like the bomb, it's just a lot smaller. So we're gonna drive a 4-inch rock spike down, then we'll drive our post. With this machine, we get 3 different rock spikes. We have a 4-inch, a 3-inch, and a 2-inch. If we didn't want a rock spike, we could also auger these. And for that, we get a 3-inch and a 6-inch. And the drive would sit right here and then connect right over here. So we have an auger as well. And those attachments all ride and have a place right on the machine right here. So we don't have to worry about putting them somewhere or hauling them in an extra truck or whatever. This is a 12-foot by 6-inch post that we're gonna put in here. This one's all pretty old and pretty dry. That's about the worst scenario. What you really want is you want a good wet post. The wetter they are, the better they drive, and the less prone they are to splintering out. So we'll see how this works. They do make a high mast option that go to 14 foot. With this unit here, this is a standard mast. We get about 13 feet underneath the drive cap, which means we've got about a foot of fall on a 12-foot post. We'll drive this spike in, pull it out, and then we'll put the post in. Yep, that's the problem. Probably 3 feet, so we're well into the rock now. Probably just over 3 feet as far as we're able to get the rock spike. So this is where we'll really start struggling, and that's why this post is starting to blow out. Not an ideal situation for this at all, in any way, shape, or form, if you've got to get 4 feet deep on these. Again, this ground's about 2 foot of solid clay, and then after that, it's nothing but that cobble. I'm gonna try just a little bit more, even though I know I'm gonna destroy the post, just to see if I can actually get it all the way down to that 4 foot mark in this solid rock. Woo! Yep, that's it. This is doing very nicely until our post decided to blow up. So now we have a post that's in the ground. Let's try and pull it out. So conveniently, if we've got a bunch of posts to pop out, they actually give us this post lifter. Because this ram is retracting instead of extending, we have all kinds of pressure that we can pull up. Because the boys at Bryce think of everything, they've even given us a pulling chain, and you can tell this isn't just an ordinary chain. This is a grade 8 chain, specifically sent with this machine to pull posts out if we need to. So now that I've driven that, what I want to try and do is, without even spiking a hole, I'd like to try and drive a 4-inch post and show you how we can drive these really weak 4-inch posts in this pretty solid ground. Yeah, it's almost perfect, 68 inches, which would be the perfect height for a 6-foot tall privacy fence. Oh yeah, look at that. Good and plumb. And that's a nice tight post, and I didn't have to pack it. A couple weeks ago, I did a video on tamping posts in, so I used gravel, and then I just used the regular ordinary fill, the organic fill from right here, and I was able to pull these out. I'm gonna see, like, I don't think I'm gonna be able to pull this out, but no, it's not gonna happen. I'm not gonna be able to pull this one out. So that's how much different it is driving a post versus trying to pack it after you've dug a hole. I didn't have to deal with any dirt, I didn't make a mess, and now I can't pull it out, and it's in there about as tight as I can possibly get it in the organic fill without disturbing the soil around it. So we've got a good solid post to build a fence on. And I didn't even have to rock spike a hole. If I rock spiked a hole, I bet I could get it in there at least 3 feet. This one's only in there 2.5 feet, so 32 inches. 3-foot set depth on these would be pretty easy. So while Dan goes to get a post so we can show you how it drives pipe, I thought I'd show you a couple other features of this. The first one being that it can pick up the wire. So we've got an 8-foot roll of game fence. We sold some other machines previously that really struggled to lift that wire. And I think what you'll see is that this will do it very nicely. These are very, very heavy rolls, and we've got a wire unspooler right on the side of it to help us out. The other thing we have is a bar here, and when you have this bar, you can run it through here and you can spool wire off either side of this. Now we could split this bar in half now, because one of the things we can't do is slide it all the way through because we have a winch option. Also remote operated electric winch. So we've got the ability to run it with the machine off, which is very handy. So that winch is 9,500 pounds. We can use that to do things like stretch, get ourselves out of trouble, or whatever else we may need to do. Now if we split this bar in half, we could put one on each side and then have a way to spool out wire on both sides of this machine. But for this purpose, we'll set this out and pop this right up here for now in the basket, which is used for carrying stuff, or you can put a bunch of posts right up in the front basket. That's really what it's designed for. But the wire unspooler is right here, so we're going to stab that into the end of the roll here, and we'll see if we can pick it up. It needs to go down just a little bit more. Now granted, it's on there upside down. We wouldn't install it that way, but the only purpose of this is just to show you that it can lift a big roll like this. And I've seen other machines that can't. That's a big plus. I don't want to have to manhandle that thing. It's really heavy, probably 500 pounds-ish, I'm gonna guess. The reason most of them can't do it is because of the leverage that's sitting out there. It doesn't allow the ram enough pressure to be able to pull itself back up. 8-foot wire is about as bad as it gets for these type of machines, and it'll obviously spool that out no problem. And you could probably build yourself an extension if you were worried about it getting hung up in there or causing any problems. I'm really not worried about that because it's nice and smooth. How tall is that post? Well, bring it over here, let's drive it. Let's take a second to talk about bryce-suma, who is today's video sponsor. Now, bryce-suma is out of Scotland, and if you remember right, we went to visit them in this video right over here. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more, if we get anything wrong, they'll tell you in this video right here. But what I can tell you about this machine that you haven't learned yet is that it's amazing, and the people behind the bryce-suma, which is the Bryce family, is an amazing family, and they have designed a great piece of equipment. Now, this machine here weighs in at an impressive 12,500 pounds, fully equipped with the bomb and all the stuff that you see here. So it is not a light piece of equipment. And part of the reason for that is because it is so well balanced. We've got all these weights over here just to make sure that when you're on a side hill, you don't have to worry about tipping over when your mast is up in the air with that 400 kilogram weight up there as well. That's about 880 pounds for you US people. Now, if you're looking for a great piece of equipment, the bryce-suma is probably one of the best out there. And no matter where you're at, whether it be England, Australia, or New Zealand, you can get this piece of equipment shipped directly to you. If you would like more information about these and you're in the US, just call us. We'll be happy to help you. Fully compacted like this, it's less than 8 feet tall, less than 6 feet wide, just a little less than 17 feet long. Its most impressive spec is that 12,500 pound weight, so you're gonna need a real trailer to pull this thing around. Let's get back to the video. Now to drive this 4-inch post, what we're gonna use is the Bryce patented Adapti-Cap, and this is Jacques' Handicap. Yeah, it's probably his boys making fun of him. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe they'll chime in and tell us what handicap is actually for, or if this is just a really handy cap. I don't really know. It's kind of funny though. But you can get different size cups for these, and that just helps keep from mushrooming the pipe. It's supposed to be the whole goal of that. So let's see if it works. I'd really like some sort of a safety stop. Like if I could put something in here so I know that this thing's not gonna fall down on me, that would make me a little bit happier. I'm nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs right now. It's a little scary. Okay. Yeah, I really would like to see a stop there. This makes me super nervous. So this is a 12-foot by 4-inch pipe, about the biggest one we really drive. We could drive larger. We're gonna drive this to 4 feet, and then I'm gonna see if I can go beyond 4 feet and get it even deeper. As we go through more and more of that rock, the harder it gets. When we were using our other big driver on the skid steer, we could only get them about 5 feet in the ground. Maybe it was only 4, I can't remember. I think we could only get them in about 4.5 feet in the ground, and then we really hit refusal and couldn't get them any deeper. So I'm gonna see what this will do and see if we can get it deeper than that after we go to the 4 feet. So we were able to get the post down about 4.5 feet with Jacques' Handicap. And the reason the handicap works really well is because it's supposed to keep it from deforming the top of the post. Let's go look and I'll show you what that looks like. So you can see on the top of the post here, we're still nice and round and flat. Whereas I'll take you over here and you can see what it does with a different kind of drive cap. So the drive cap we have on our other unit does this. It kind of mushrooms and bells it out, and it makes it very tough to get a cap on there later on. So if you want to be able to get a cap, Jacques' Handicap works really well. What we're having problems with is as soon as we get down to that really hard layer and it starts bouncing, it wants to bounce up out of that cap, and because that cap is so tightly fit, we have to consistently readjust it and get it back on there, and it's kind of a pain. So I went ahead and took that off, and we're going to see if we can get it down even further without that cap, just to see if it can go deeper. This driver, that was about all it could do, and we couldn't get it to go anymore. So I took the handicap off and was able to get it down probably another 4 inches, but in doing that, I actually bent the post. And you can see that right here, that we've actually curved the post by trying to get that extra little bit. So once you've hit refusal, it's probably best just to stop. If it's a wood post, it's probably gonna break. If it's a metal post, it's gonna bend. That's when you just give up. You're really not getting anything more out of it. Yeah, we're right at 5 feet. So we got that one to 5 feet, but we bent the post to do it. Not the way we do fence. It's gonna take more than this thing's got. We'll see if the tool cat can get it out, but I kind of doubt it. Yeah, so just to let you know, driven posts never hold. Although, even though they don't hold very good, I will have to come back with bigger equipment because I don't want to ruin this piece of equipment. Couldn't get it out with the Bryce, couldn't get it out with the tool cat. We'll probably have to come over here with one of our big skid steers or maybe a 6,000 pound forklift and finally get that thing out of the ground. But for all of you that say driven posts don't work, I submit to you this post. What I would say is there a perfect driver? No, we've showed you how to do things via hand drivers. We've showed you how to use gas powered drivers. We've showed you how to use hydraulic drivers, skid steer attachment drivers, and now we've showed you how to drive things using a track mounted one-man fencing driver from Bryce. We have all these because each application calls for its own piece of equipment. not just one piece of equipment for all applications, although if I was going to take one piece to do most things, the Bryce is probably it. It will do a very good job in the widest range of possibilities, giving me the best accuracy, along with some other features that we talked about, like the winch, extra lighting kits, wide tracks on it. I think the tracks measure 16 inches wide. So we've got a lot of float with those nice wide tracks. Balance, because we have those suitcase counterweights opposite our driver, which a lot of drivers don't have. That's why they're really heavy on one side. Whereas we can go on side hills and be a little more confident, even though we've got a narrower track base, just because we've got that weight on the other side. Does it make a heavier machine? Yes, but does it make a better balanced machine? Absolutely. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the Bryce equipment, what it can do, and how different ways to install your posts without using concrete and without digging holes. And until next time, remember, I'm Mark with SWI in Wyoming, and we are Wyoming's Fence Company. I hope you have a good dang day.